Hey guys, how are you? It's Zach from Zach Loves Books. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining in. Like I said, I'm having a lot of fun with this. Today I thought again that I might try to cover something rosy, like some fiction, or even just a regular book. But today I want to talk about something a bit more serious. Um, Not only am I a book lover, I'm a safety lover. So, what I want to cover today is some books that could literally save your life. Um, if you're ever in that kind of situation. I live in a big city, Toronto, which is, I don't know what the exact population of Toronto is, 2 million, maybe more. I'm not up on those current facts, but there's millions of people in Toronto. We have a subway. We're kind of like not as big as New York City, but over the last maybe year or two, in the last couple of years, threats to personal safety have kind of increased. On the subway, to people's homes. There's more carjackings here. There's like people's SUVs being stolen right out of their driveways. People trying to break into people's houses to steal their fobs, right? You know, so that they could get the cars coming in groups to areas where crime never used to be an issue. So that's why today, like, I want to cover this, which is like a bit more of a serious topic to me, and still to do with books, since it's Zach Loves Books. Um, but yeah, so if you're liking the content, so far, don't forget to like and subscribe. But especially with this one today, I just, if you like anything I cover today, I want to emphasize if you could just share it with anybody. If you think I've given you some useful information, from, or it's that one of these books that I'm going to cover is going to benefit somebody you know personally, then just share the video with them. And and if you like the content, don't forget to like and subscribe as well. So yeah, let's start with one. The reason why I'm covering these books today too is because I don't know if it's both a blessing and a curse. I'm actually, sometimes it's a blessing, sometimes it's a curse. I don't know. There's a psychological name for it. That it's called hypervigilance. It's something that I feel like that I have, where whenever I'm out in public, I'm always watching my surroundings. So it's like I'm hyper vigilant, just looking around and seeing if there's any threats in the immediate vicinity to me, that could be threats to my person per se, or things that can hurt me. Some people think it's going too far, but I've personally heard of some stories, which I'll touch on later, um, where people, have gotten hurt because they're not looking out, for their surroundings. But in any case, I just want people to know too that I'm going to be covering some self-defense books, and I'm not going to be covering anything extreme like Krav Maga. This is that I think Middle Eastern or Russian or something self-defense where you like gouge people's eyes out. This is really extreme. This is the kind of thing that you could take a class for, but I just feel like I want to cover more like personal defense, self-defense, for average people, the everyday person. And also, I want to tell people, and I want to make sure I put an emphasis on this, that I am not a law enforcement professional. I'm not a self-defense instructor, and in no way, like, would I tell anybody to ever use self-defense on someone. That's something you have to personally decide, because the minute you use self-defense techniques on people, it could be considered like assault with a deadly weapon if you've been trained. So defending yourself is a very tricky situation when it comes to a court of law, because if it comes to a situation where you hurt somebody unintentionally, you could find yourself defending yourself in a court of law so that you don't go to prison because you accidentally killed somebody, or it's a case of manslaughter. But that's let's not even think like that. The first book I want to cover is called "Be Alert, Be Aware, Have a Plan" by Neil Rawls. Rawls, Rawls. So This is like, it says a complete guide to protecting yourself, your home, and your family. This is like an overall kind of personal safety guide. It covers being secure in the workplace, going at a garage when you're traveling, how not to get conned, stalking and dating crimes, etc. This one you should be able to find in the bookstore. It's like $23. I picked this up a couple years back, but you should be able to find this one. And it's a small compact read. It's got graphics in there as well. Unlike fiction, this you can just turn to for whatever you need. So if you're traveling and you want to brush up on some safety tips, you could just peruse through that. um, Also, just I want to let you guys know too that I'm not ignoring the ladies as well. um, I found that this one, Dangerous Instincts, and use an FBI profiler's tactics to avoid unsafe situations by Mary Ellen O'Toole, and Alyssa Bowman. Now this is another one. This is like personal safeguarding for personal safety to your body. It talks about personality. It talks about like looking out for details, using your intuition, sizing people up. um, I like this one. And I mean, what I like too is when I perused through it, I haven't read it from back to back, cover to cover, but it did touch also on safety for women, like when you're in a bar, how to protect yourself from people drugging your drinks, etc., and that type of thing. So this one is also, you should be able to find in your local bookstore. It's $17, 16 US dollars, Canadian 17. You should be able to find this in your local bookstore. Dangerous Instincts. So you can take a look at it. um, Now, this one, Humane Pressure Point Self Defense by George A. Dillman with Chris Thomas. This guy, I think, is like, um, he's law enforcement. I think he's trained a lot of law enforcement. This one is like strictly for the dudes and strictly for the guys in the sense. Not that women couldn't use these techniques either, but the reason why I picked this one up is because it's written by a guy who trains law enforcement, and like ambulance services and people like that to use the same techniques that law enforcement people use, like so that if somebody attacks you, you can quickly get out of it and run and then call somebody for help, or call 911, etc. 911 is what we use up here in Canada. I'm not sure. No, it's 901 in the States as well. But, this one is, once again, you don't have to go to like a class for this. This has tips and tricks. It shows you all the pressure points on the body. It's not like you'll be Steven Seagal after, uh, you look through this. But if you get one or two tactics from this, like there's one in here where, if somebody grabs you in a bear hug, he says, and you can't get out of it. This guy is physically stronger than you. That if you like just clap your hands on somebody's ears really hard with all your strength, they'll let you go. So it's things like that that you can do just enough so that you can get away from somebody. So it's like self-defense without really, being like the extreme Krav Maga type of karate type of stuff. So this one will be hard to find. I picked this up when years ago from World's Biggest Bookstore here in Toronto, which no longer exists. You will not find this anywhere. You might have to order this off A-Books or Amazon. And this one is called Never Be a Victim by Edward N. Ross, The Practice of Psychological Self-Defense. This one I really love. The reason I love this one is because, and I'm going to do a more in-depth interview, not interview, sorry, vlog about these books later. Like this one, I'm going to like look this one over maybe in the next couple of months and really go through chapter by chapter and then do a more in-depth vlog about it, because this one I love. This just, talks about avoiding dangerous situations overall, using your intuition, seeing a bunch of, dangerous people on the street going the other way, and things like that. It's about the psychology of self-defense. For you to practice the principles in this book, you don't have to be strong. You don't have to have, a black belt in jujitsu or like karate, or be a expert in kung fu or anything like that. Um, so, this is like one that I really recommend maybe people source out and buy for themselves if they want, to just stay safe and avoid potentially harmful situations to themselves. When it costs $20, I probably got it at a used bookstore maybe for like $5. So yeah, Never Be a Victim by Edward N. Ross. I really recommend that one. This is one of my favorite ones. Um, Now I pick these up all the time. This one's called Defend Yourself by Eric Baskine. This is now it's like now I'm gonna kick to find these things. I try to pick up one. Has like just regular self defense techniques. It looks like it was from the 1970s or something like that. But I try to pick up ones that just that don't have like complicated techniques. Even things like this, The Art of Self Defense by Martin Doherty, How to Dodge, Deflect, and Fight Your Way Out of Difficult Situations. I picked this up at Indigo, which is our local bookseller, for like $5. This also has like simple graphics in it. Defense posture, things like that. This talks about, first how to stay safe on the street, but then it also shows you like, avoiding dangerous areas and things like that. And then it gets into like a few personal self-defense techniques, in the middle of the book. But once again, I mean, not for everybody. Some people are like, no, I could never defend myself in that way. But good to peruse, maybe good to own a couple of these as well, or one or two, just so that you can, um, know. And I really like this, The Art of Fighting Without Fighting, by Jeff Thompson. This is also hard to find. You will not find this anywhere unless you happen to live in a big city that has a lot of used bookstores like I do. I probably picked it up for a couple of dollars. But this, I think, is actually written by a bouncer, and he talks about the thousands of situations he's been in as a bouncer where it's better to avoid the fight altogether. So this is another one of those psychological defensive, using mind tricks and mind manipulation on people, so that brutes that try to goad you into a fight at a bar, you can talk your way out of it. um, but yeah, so there's also this one, Think, Act, Stay Safe, Be Your Own Guardian Angel with the React Approach to Self-Defense by Steve Collins. This is another one. It's got some funny pictures in it. It's menacing the bartender with a broken glass. But aside from that kind of humorous aspect of it, it tells you, things like this: recognize, evaluate alternatives, concentrate. It's got a lot of information here on how to assess a potentially dangerous situation: white, yellow, orange, red. Levels of alertness and what they mean. Situational awareness, talks about situational awareness. This is the kind of self-defense um, book that I love, because you know if you can just get like one or two things from these kind of books, they could save your life. How to Win a Fight: A Guide to Avoiding and Surviving Violence by Lawrence Kane and Chris Wilder. I think these guys are pretty prolific in the self-help, and not the self-defense genre. I love these books. Yeah, this one you should be able to find in the bookstores, 1950. But like I said, not every one of these will be everybody's cup of tea. How to defend yourself, unarmed combat skills that work. You don't have to buy these books, but like they say, knowledge is power. You could also take like a self-defense course at your local YMCA, whatever your style is. But because it's books and this is a book loving channel, I want to cover these. This is also one of my personal favorites, How Not to Get Hit, The Art of Fighting Without Fighting, Staying Safe in a Violent World by Nathaniel Cook. I first saw this in the library, but just the title alone, How Not to Get Hit. This is the key here, you know. And once again, like they tell you about crime statistics, how the professionals do it, how, using intuition, things like that. This one you should be able to find in your local bookstore. It's not that old. It'll be in the martial arts section. But those sections tend to get smaller and smaller these days. Hey, even at your local bookstore, you may find more, but like I said, staying safe in a violent world, that's what you want to do. Um, let's see. Here's another one, a little extreme, When the Fight Goes to the Ground, using jujitsu strategies and tactics for self-defense. I mean, this is extreme. I don't even know why I have this one, but like I said, a little bit more extreme. I'll showcase it anyway so you can see it. Now this is really extreme, surviving armed assaults. um, this covers like open conceal and that kind of stuff, and even defending yourself against armed assailants. I don't know why I picked this up. I think this is more relevant to people who live in the States, because we don't really condone owning guns here, and even gun violence here, even though it's a big part of our city. But Surviving Armed Assaults by Lawrence A. Kane. I think I already mentioned that guy's name. Didn't mean for that to rhyme. But I've saved the last one, which is my favorite. And this is why I really created this post. Um, I'll let you know what it is. The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. This book was probably written in the early 80s. It's one of the first kind of, it's not even really a self-defense book. It's about using your intuition and saying that fear is a gift that you're given to keep yourself safe in situations, Um, it says right there, this book can save your life. And for some of you, you may be able to find this now in your local bookstore. Um, you'll pay $18 for it, mate. But if you go to a used bookstore or a thrift store, you could find it for $2, $5. So I suggest maybe try your thrift store or used bookstore if you want a bargain first. But if you absolutely need to get a hold of a copy, and you want a physical copy, go to a regular bookstore. You can probably download a book copy off of Amazon. But the reason I love this book, and I always tell people about it, is because this really tells you how to use your intuition. It opens with a girl taking her groceries, to a walk up in Manhattan in the early 80s, and she's assaulted by a man who helps her with her groceries. And afterwards, she says, I knew all along that there were red flags about this man helping me inside and letting him come up with me with my groceries. And then, Gavin de Becker starts to tell people what the signs are to look for, um, and how to use your intuition to, avoid dangerous situations that could, potentially be a harm to your body. He used to be, he had a company where he was like a bodyguard to the stars. I don't know if he's done that anymore. Like I said, this book is now probably 30 years old, but the wisdom is timeless. Um, and then there's also a section in here about, if you're getting like stalker letters, how to decode what the stalker letter is. There's also, a chapter about like if you're being followed late at night, how to walk so that you don't look like a victim and things like that. So there's a lot of little nuggets of wisdom. This is one where every time I see it at a used bookstore or in a dollar book bin or at a university book sale or something, if I find a copy of it, I pick it up and I re-gift it, just like how I re-gift a lot of other books that I buy. But in this one, it's not just for for women, it's also for men. But this one especially, if you know somebody, if you have like aunts, nieces, nephews, your mom, your sister, let them know about this book, Gift of Fear, Gavin de Becker. And I've gifted it a couple of times, and it's not new, but the wisdom is timeless. So like I said, guys, please share this one. This is really important. If any one of these books can help save somebody's life, then I feel good about that, or even the knowledge in them. But let me know if you have any books that you suggest on self-defense. Whether it's verbal or intuitive or like physical, or if you've read any of these, and let me know your thoughts. All right, that's all for now, guys. Thanks. We'll catch you on the next one.